Hello and a warm welcome to everybody. We would like to wish everyone a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening, depending on where you are in the world today. My name is Jamie, and I'm one of the co-founders of Safeopedia. Safeopedia's mission is to support the EH&S professionals, operational folks, and any safety-minded individuals with free safety information, tools, and education. I'd like to extend a huge thank you to those dedicated professionals for the great work they do on a daily basis. Today, we're very proud to present Worker Heat Stress and Dehydration. Are you prepared? This Safeopedia webinar has been made possible by Squincher, a preferred manufacturer member of Safety Network. Safety Network demands excellence, so demand Safety Network. It is now my great pleasure to introduce you to today's presenter and my good friend, Bubba Wolford. Bubba received his Master of Science in Exercise Physiology from Mississippi State University in 1991. He joined Squincher in 2009, now serving as Director of Business Development, where he spearheads promoting the importance of proper hydration, health, and safety within the industrial workplace community. I now invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the presentation. With that, Bubba, please take it away.
Thanks, Jamie, and thanks to everyone for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend with us today to talk about what's one of the most misunderstood challenges that we all have as safety professionals in the workplace today, and that's dehydration. Squincher has been working on a hydration safety platform for almost 10 years now, gathering data, factual data, to understand physiologically what is happening to the worker when heat stress, the hazard, which we call the heat or cold, is introduced in the workplace. You're not going to get, I want to preface today, you're not going to get my opinions. You're not going to get a sales pitch on Squincher. One thing fundamentally that we have insisted on is that we do not mix selling with education. We go through distribution, safety distribution, to sell our products. For the Squincher team, we're more of a consultant for you to help you understand what's happening to your employees. We've been at this for 44 years now. We're owned by Kent Precision Food Groups, but our facility, corporate offices and manufacturing facility, is located in Columbus, Mississippi, Northeast Mississippi. We produce about 95% of our products right here that services all the U.S. And many parts of the world. If you look at the history of electrolyte manufacturers, beverage companies, we all know that the Gatorade started this back in 1965. They went to the retail market in about 66 with Stokely Van Camp, and since now they're owned by PepsiCo, and they are the leader in the world today as far as providing electrolytes. Squincher came along in about 1975, and in the early 1980s, we pivoted to meet the need of the industrial safety professionals in terms of the way, and that shaped the way that we approached product development and then program development, being our Hydration 365 platform. So we are catering to a different audience. About average 40-year-old worker is the age in the industrial sector. Your true sports drink companies, your Gatorade, your Powerades, the ones you see on the right over here, typically are catering more to a younger 18 to say 26-year-old athlete. So it's a different demographic. It's not good, bad, indifferent. It's a different focus in what we're doing. as you can see, after Powerade jumped in, which is Coke, the floodgates pretty much opened up thereafter. So the need for electrolyte replacement, where 20 years ago you might have an argument with that, there's not much argument this day and time that there is a need to replace electrolytes once you've lost those minerals through sweat. We're going to talk about that as we go through. I would like to ask everyone to, as safety professionals, to look at what we're talking about in terms of a PPE item. We like to look at it as internal PPE, which really has not been thought of in the past. So let's really position this as a safety discussion and not just a sports drink. And with that, because we are positioning this as PPE, and we're looking at our particular demographic that is an older demographic than a high school or college athlete, because one size fit all. And as everybody knows, in the past 10 years, you've really seen, the PPE industry has moved heavily toward fit testing and making sure that if earplugs, for example, not everybody's ear is the same size. You got a man and a woman is going to differ. You got large individuals versus smaller individuals. So if the PPE is not properly fitted, it's not going to protect the worker the way that it should. The question that I get a lot of times, why are there not OSHA federal regulations, like we have with, in terms of slip and falls and fall protection, those kind of things. Over 4 feet on a ladder, you have to have a harness and those kind of things. And there are not. There is not a federal mandate on even just hydration when it comes to water. However, Cal OSHA some years ago did adopt a state regulation around what a company has to do in terms of providing fresh drinking water. Also, Washington State has adopted something very similar to that. But again, no federal regulations. But what OSHA looks at and provides for all of us are recommendations. And if you look at this OSHA card on the right, that is free. You can order these. They're nice cards. They're laminated. It's a double-sided card that you can provide in a training situation. And it's good basic information. So with this being said, if there is a recordable or an accident associated with dehydration, everyone also knows they can go straight to the general duty clause, and all of a sudden the recommendations have a lot more teeth. So we have built our program around these recommendations. So a few of them, and we're going to get into this more toward the end of the presentation. But we look at things. I mean, they're looking at things like ventilation, on the engineer control side, fans, or all your fans working in all the departments. Do you have proper ventilation as it is, depending on what's expelled in the plant, in terms of harmful gases or whatever it may be. Then more on what we get into is, how do we protect our workers that are in, high heat areas? Maybe they have hazmat suits on, and do we have a protocol to make sure that they're going into the hazard and they're coming out with enough rest breaks, electrolytes, drinking water, those kind of things, to where when we reintroduce them into the work setting, that they are ready physiologically to do that task and not escalate the dangers that would come with wherever they're working. And the most important thing, I mean, and again, we all know products are great, PPE products of all types, but without the proper training to educate the workforce on how to properly use this tool, whatever it may be, is really paramount. To have a really world-class program, training has to be part of that. And of course, with the training, we will identify symptoms and understand what's going on to work with the buddy system that we all preach and teach, so that we have a lot of eyes and ears in our plants that notice if somebody is not acting quite right and what to do. Talk a lot about water. Yes, we are an electrolyte manufacturer of beverages. That's what we said. We don't sell water, but you don't have a hydration program and you are not practicing hydration health if water is not the first focus in terms of hydrating the body. 60 to 65% of the human body is made up of water. There are lots of studies going on right now, particularly associated with bladder cancer, that's looking at chronically dehydrated individuals that have bladder cancer. Could it be because they're not hydrated properly and they're not flushing the toxins from the particular organ? It might even be liver. So we're finding out, and we will find out more. The Mayo Clinic, for example, does some of these studies, and that is who we lean on. Some of the statistics, some of the things I'm going to talk about today will be cited from the Mayo Clinic. Carrying the nutrients to your blood cells, regulating our body temperature, much like a vehicle. It's funny, we tend to pay more attention to a vehicle that overheats than we do our own body, because we're immediately going to pull over, find out what the problem is, so we don't damage our precious vehicle. But sometimes we have a hard time pulling over when our body is telling us that we're getting into trouble, we're overheating, and it could be a catastrophic result. And we're going to talk more about that too. And then also realize breathing. I mean, right now I'm losing water, and when it's cold outside and you see the smoke coming out of your mouth, that's exactly what that is. That's good old H2O. Simply going to the bathroom. At night, when you wake up, some of you may find that you sweated during the night. Most people do, whether you realize it or not. It may dry up by the time that you wake up. But we are constantly just living and existing, expelling water. And it's so important that we put that water back into our systems. We have the challenge of drinking good fresh water every day becomes harder and harder because of the multi-billion-dollar beverage industry is constantly advertising products that may not be the most healthiest for us to drink. They may be high, our energy drinks, for example, high in sugar, high in caffeine. As we move on, we're going to talk about diuretics, for example, and how that does not help us when we're trying to hydrate properly to be able to work in high temperatures. So the Mayo Clinic recommends 12 cups of water a day for a man, 9 cups of water for a female, and that's sitting in an office. It's temperature controlled. Then OSHA takes it one step further and says once the hazard is present, typically 80 to 85 degrees, 90 degrees is the threshold where things really start happening. We're going to talk about that in a second. But 1 cup about every 20 minutes. And then we'll also discuss how electrolytes come in to play when the hazard is introduced and the body starts sweating and we're losing those minerals. 75% of everyone on the call today is chronically dehydrated. Just think about that. Electrolytes, they're minerals. They're found in our muscle cells, sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. This is what keeps us balanced in terms of the control of our body. When we're out of balance, these minerals, which again are housed in the muscle cells, will not fire properly, and you'll have the result of a cramp. And I can tell you, when I was assistant strength coach at Mississippi State University years ago, if I had a kid on the football field, I would simply say a few choice words to him because he did not take business that day, have the training staff get him off the field, and we put somebody else in. Unfortunately, it's not that easy in our setting. If I have somebody here at Squincher and they're dehydrated, they have a symptom that one of the symptoms is dizziness, also severe leg cramps. So they floorboard the forklift, for example, and they go off a 20-foot dock. All of a sudden, again, that's catastrophic. So cramping is the nemesis and what we are 100% working to alleviate. And that can't be done when the body is losing the electrolytes and we do not supplement that. So the challenges are the things that we're dealing with, the environment, what kind of work are we performing, the conditions, the health conditions, what are we eating, and these are all things that we train on, understanding what's happening to you or what's happening to your coworker when they're showing these signs, these symptoms on the right. These are pretty common, and you're working next to the guy you work or gal who you work next to every single day, and they're just not acting quite right. Maybe they're talking a little bit out of their head. They're slower than normal. At that point, that you have identified a few of the symptoms, you need to get help. You need to enact whatever protocol it is to take this individual and get them assessed. So this chart here talks about just 2% dehydration can affect the body. And then as you move into the 4% upwards of 10%, at that point you could actually have a full-blown heat stroke. So this is what we're trying to avoid, and we want to be at zero fluid loss because we are practicing the right rehydration steps on a daily basis and before we come to work. And that's something else we'll talk a little bit about. When I go all over the country and actually presenting to your workers, and that is something that we do, if I can leave the presentation and feel comfortable that I got through to the majority of the people to understand your body, understand what your body is telling you when you go to the bathroom, this chart can help you tremendously stay hydrated and not get into a situation where, it could result in death. There's more deaths recorded annually in regards to dehydration than all the natural disasters combined. We lose an average of 4 to 5 young men every single year on the football field. That's unacceptable. That's 100% unacceptable. What do we live by in our community? Every single accident, 100% are preventable. That's what we're tasked with. And I can tell y'all, it starts and it stops, safety does, with hydration. Make no doubt about it, it does. So we have these that we can post. We'll be glad to send these to you. We have sticker versions. We have all different types of collateral that we're going to talk about more, that we refer to as our toolbox, that will assist you and aid you in keeping this top of mind, particularly as we get into the summer months. Some of this, we've talked about. It doesn't take a lot of fluid loss to start really seeing issues. Somebody's energy levels are going down. The answer is not an energy drink. The energy drink is replacing the water and the electrolytes. That's the healthy way to boost your energy. So these, again, just some of the things we've talked about a little bit already. Headaches, fatigue, things like this for warning signs. When the workforce comes to our facility every day, there's a set of challenges over and above what I dealt with as a coach. With young people, I didn't have to worry as much on a daily basis with alcohol. Back in the day, I wasn't worried as much about the other diuretics like caffeine, but all of that is so prevalent now. High fat diets, lots of energy drinks, beer, liquor, all these things that are being consumed when they leave our facility are things that we have to train the employee to understand. If you're going to do these things, what do you do to make sure that your body is back in good shape, hydrated, to come to work the next day? It's not that we're telling you not to drink or not to do energy drinks. We're going to recommend that you don't, but if you do, what precautions do you take to make sure that when you come in that you are hydrated? And then the challenge of medical preconditions. Absolute epidemic in this country today. It's a sad, sad picture because now it's trickled down to the children. Childhood diabetes is an epidemic, unfortunately. And we're going to look at some of these statistics and how it impacts our workforce. Again, this is not our opinion. The statistics you see here today, diabetes from the American Diabetes Association, the hypertension is from the American Heart Association. 11.3%, average worker 40 years old. That's what we're dealing with. Hypertension, 33%. And then throw in the obesity side of it. Third of the U.S. adults contribute to escalating these numbers. So again, when we think about hydrating with electrolytes, a typical sports drink, high sugar, high salt, maybe we need to look at that a little closer. This looks at the numbers as it's separated by race, and it shows you, depending on your numbers in your workplace, how the statistics line up by race. This chart here talks about diagnosed and then undiagnosed individuals in the different age ranges. So when you look at the 18 to 44, the numbers aren't all that great, but when you jump over that 44 to 64, 45 to 64, the numbers jump significantly, over 10%. So the undiagnosed side is pretty scary because that's adding to those numbers. And we look at the high blood pressure statistics, 1 in 3, 1,000 deaths every day. Individuals that are diagnosed or even undiagnosed with hypertension, they're much more susceptible to heart attacks, stroke, chronic heart disease, heart failure, heart attacks. Pretty scary numbers, and you equate that to what we're dealing with every day. That's who we're trying to keep safe. Only about half of those millions and millions of people are monitoring and managing their situation. And again, that's scary. So anything we can do to help from a health and wellness standpoint while they're here at the job site or the job place is going to pay dividends. Again, we talked about some of this, a lot of this already, and we're going to get into a little bit more of how we actually do it. So having a plan, having an action plan on how to prevent accidents associated with dehydration in the workplace is what we at Squincher are committed to helping you with. And that's what I really want to get across today is we're here 100 strong, coast to coast, also Canada, Mexico, Australia, and expanding all over the world as we speak. We are here to help you. The factors, when we go, and we'll talk about our facility assessments here in a minute, but a lot of times what I find is we do the facility assessment and ask all the questions on how the hydration program is working, and then I ask the question, do you have workers that are outside? Well, we got 3 or 4 people that cut grass or make sure the grounds are taken care of. Okay, what are we doing for those people? They have a different factor. They have sun, direct sunlight, and so what are we doing? A lot of times those people are forgotten. So I'll get back to the 100%. We've got to understand where all of our workers are performing their work, where they are, and how it is affecting them. And we may have to tweak the hydration program, much like we have to tweak it for diabetics and hypertension individuals. The same thing goes with different outside influences in terms of the environment. Then we've already said about the protective clothing, workload, and we'll touch on some of that. What's happening physiologically to the body when we start moving into the onset symptoms of possible heat stroke, heat stress, low blood pressure, hypotension is something that starts occurring. Our circulation decreases. We have the dry mouth. We're thirsty. Is thirst a good way to know when to hydrate? Absolutely not. It's too late at that point. The headaches, constipation, weight loss. If you really want to know if your workforce is hydrating properly, weigh them when they come in the door and weigh them when they leave. And that is a simple but very effective way of understanding, are we getting the fluids back into our body before we leave the facility? Understanding a heat index, you've got a lot of companies use thresholds. It may be 80 degrees, it may be 90 degrees. So let's say that we have a 90-degree threshold before we're going to provide electrolyte products, for example. So you go to the top where it says air temperature and look at the 90-degree mark, which is our threshold, and then go down. You're in Mississippi, so 60% humidity in the left-hand column can be pretty common coming up on the June and July months. And you go across and match them. We're at 106 degrees, folks. Over 100 degrees, new ball game. That is catastrophic conditions. So that's what it feels like. That's what the individual is actually dealing with. So very, very important that we understand this first so that we can teach this to our employees and understand what the real temperature is when we use our heat index. And we do have posters, again, as collateral that we can provide to you, absolutely no charge, to put up and to keep people aware of understanding the heat index. Again, 90 degrees, it all starts, pretty rapidly, and that is the heat index temperature. As you can see, things just escalate as the temperature goes up. Some of the things, again, we've already talked about the OSHA recommendations. This is what we're going to build, or it's what we have built our assessment off of. So it's a two-part survey or assessment, very similar to a glove survey, which we go to department. And again, to use that example, you may have a department that has sharp objects where they need high-level cut-resistant gloves. You may have another department that does not. So that we built our assessment very much the same way. You might have one part of the facility that stays hotter year-round simply because the equipment is putting off a lot more heat. So that department may be treated differently from another department. They again, the PPE clothing that they're using. So it's not a one-size-fits-all in the facility. We've got to look at it plant to plant. So after we ask the questions, we have a questionnaire, if you will, that we'll go through that talks about what are your issues, what are your goals with the program, and then we'll go out and walk the facility, department to department, and discuss and understand how the total program needs to be constructed to protect everybody, depending on what department, what different aspects they're dealing with. We, one of the things that we say is when we come into your facility, the first thing we want to know is how are you providing safe, fresh, healthy drinking water? We're not concerned about the electrolytes at that part because, in other words, we say follow the water. Do you have your hydration stations positioned the right place? Does everybody have the same opportunity to hydrate as other departments? So one of the big things we look at is if you've got, we go to the first line in the plant and those people have to walk 50 feet to hydrate. And we go to the next part of the plant, another department, and they have to walk 150 feet to hydrate. We need to fix that. Everybody needs the same opportunity to hydrate. So those are some of the things we look at. But absolutely, the water has to be right before we make any recommendations on how we're going to provide and dispense electrolytes. That is the number one thing we're looking at, and that may be broken. The first discussion may be simply how are we going to fix, the dispensing of the water. There's no need to even talk about how we're going to provide electrolytes until we understand that, and that happens more than you would think. Do we have a plan? Do we have a protocol is another thing we look at when somebody shows the symptoms, onset heat stroke, heat stress. What do we do? Where do we take them? Do we have an infirmary? Do we have an EH&S nurse, or do we not? So there needs to be a protocol set that everybody understands what to do. And time is absolutely against us in this situation. If we are not doing the right, if we're not following the right steps to get that person out of the situation, out of the hazard, into an area where we can start lowering their core body temperature safely and not complicate things like giving them too much liquid, then they throw up and we're hitting 911. The goal is do not dial 911, and if we follow the right precautions and procedures, we're going to protect that individual properly. We're not going to have to do that. I've talked about this starting out about fitting. You know, one size does not fit all. If you look at the formula on the left, that was the original 1975 formula that we came out with. On the far right is the Squincher Zero, the zero sugar product, which is our number one formula right now. And the reason for that is it makes a lot of sense when we have a workforce that's, 40 to 50%, depending on where you are in the country, suffering from two of the top medical preconditions in the country that are sensitive to salt and sugar, hypertension, diabetes. So this is a lot of plants choose to take the sugar out. All of these products are 50% less sugar than some of the other sports drinks that you have out there. So we can lower the sugar and we can lower the salt and eliminate the sugar if we feel like that will best protect the workers. If we have workers that are doing, high energy tasks, like let's just say I got a 25-year-old guy in the oil field, the Permian Basin, and he's on an oil rig. I'm going to probably, if he doesn't have diabetes and he's not suffering from hypertension, he's pretty healthy, I'm probably going to want to get as much of the high sugar product in him as I can, because that's a different situation. So understanding who the worker is, what the situation they're in, what tasks that they're performing, all goes in to make sure that we're providing the best products and the best programs, and that's what we refer to as our custom fitting. This is this toolbox that I alluded to earlier. We've got two places where you can go to get this information. Obviously, our website will have all of this, and also Safeopedia. The platform we're using today has been absolutely wonderful, game changer for us to be able to get the information out in a very easy way, and they have helped us, partnered with us on taking the program to the next level, and that means our white papers that we continue to expound on, in building a white paper library. That was one of our goals. That's not easy to do. They have helped us do that. The educational flyers that we have, that we provide you, the heat stress awareness poster. You can see that kind of in the middle. It's the biggest one. That's about a 2 foot by 3 foot laminated poster. It has the heat index for today, dry erase, that you can post the hazard, and it has the week below that. All of the things that we'll train on are highlighted on this poster. Turn it around for those of you that have situations of cold stress, and it can be relevant for that as well. So very good tool, along with all of the other collateral that we have. Videos, as I said, over 100 people on the street. We can come to you. I'm going to Wisconsin next week to national, global companies, and I'm spending time the entire week doing facility assessments, and heat stress training. That's my whole week. So again, that is the value that we can bring, is to getting our hands dirty, assessing the situation, and together deciding what's the best practice going forward. And with that, again, I want to thank everybody for their time, but let's please hang on with us. I'm going to shoot it back to Jamie, and I would love to answer some of your questions and concerns. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Bubba. Once again, nobody knows more about hydration than Bubba. So I don't know if you ever see him at a conference, ASSP, NSC, go find Bubba. He's a wealth of knowledge and information. So really appreciate that. Yeah, I noticed we got about 20 minutes left in the hour, and we have a lot of questions. So we will get to them, and just again, if we don't get to your question, we will reach out through email to answer it as best we can, and likely we'll follow up with some written answers for the whole group, just to make sure that everyone gets the same educational information. So let's start right now. Great question. We purchased bottled water for our crew. That's enough, isn't it? So that's from Chris. Thanks, Chris. Is water enough for hydration, or are electrolytes necessary?
Yeah, good question. I addressed this in the talk. 10 years ago, I would get that argument that electrolytes weren't necessary. But if you understand what's happening to the body through normal body function, we're losing water, as we discussed earlier. And then when we start sweating, that's when we start losing more, escalating the amount of electrolytes that we're losing. And then the body simply will not be able to function in a normal fashion at that point. And one of the worst symptoms or side effects from losing electrolytes and having an improper mineral balance in the muscle cells is cramping. And we can all agree cramping can be catastrophic in an industrial or construction setting. I mean, just think of somebody operating heavy equipment. That's not a good thing to have severe leg cramps and floorboard a machine or whatever. So water is first, and water is absolutely you don't have a program without water. But the supplement of electrolyte, you don't have a program either if you're not replacing the electrolytes.
Cool, thanks. And actually, we've got quite a few of the same question. So the latest answer was Jeffrey. Is there a proper ratio of water to electrolyte replenishment? And John, I see your question as well, and the others.
There's not really scientific data on that. What we recommend is 2 servings of water to 1 serving of electrolytes when the hazard is present. So when the index is such to where the temperature is causing our workers to sweat, or to sweat, then at that point 2 to 1. So 2 servings of water to 1 serving of electrolytes, and we feel like that in itself keeps a nice balance to where if you are using a sugar product, for example, that you're not getting too much sugar, which can cause GI issues. So that's what we recommend, is a 2 to 1 ratio.
Awesome, thanks, Bubba. Let's see here. Christian has a question. What does 2% dehydration mean in a concrete manner? Does that mean losing 2 pounds of water? So if you can talk about what does 2% dehydration mean, Bubba?
It's 2% of your body fluid. Good question. So 2%, I mean, just think of it, is a tank, for example. So if you've got 10 gallons in your tank, which we're calling the body, it's a loss 2% of that 10 gallons. Now, that's a horrible way to explain it, but that's the best way I know how to do it. So it's a 2% loss of the fluid that is in your body.
Thanks, Bubba. Here's a great question. Ranhel, I think you pronounce your name like that. Ranhel asks, do you have the training materials in Spanish also?
We are in the process of having those produced as we speak. We're probably about 4 weeks out from doing that, but yes, we will have our posters, our other collateral, our P charts, those kind of things. We will have a set for Spanish. That's right, and we do, and that's not just for our Mexican market, which we do. We're in Mexico, but that's just obviously for any area in the U.S. that has Spanish employees or workers. So yes, we will have those.
Great, thanks, Bubba. I believe Mike already answered this question, but just in case not everybody saw it, Steve was asking, does your company have personal portable hydration systems for workers who work in high heat confined spaces, such as boilers or tanks? One of the issues that my customers face is that they have workers who work in spaces with very limited ingress, egress access, as well as welders who do boiler overhauls or who work in tight constricted spaces or at elevation. And Mike answered, and Bubba, maybe you want to talk to it a little bit, but Mike was answering, at the current time, we offer portable coolers, bottles, etc., along with many small single-serve products designed to be portable for workers using bottled water or other drinking containers that are available. Not sure if you want to elaborate, Bubba, or not.
Yes. When we have folks that are on their feet and they're away from the facility or hydration station or something like that, we've got products like our quick sticks, like our fast packs, squeeze pop, even our new ready to drink product, which is a pouch. It's a ready to drink product in a pouch that can be frozen and put on the body. It actually can act as a cooling agent. But there's a variety of different things that we can do, whether, as Mike mentioned, it's dispensers or even the product itself, which can be a dispenser also, like the ready to drink. So glad to help figure those out, and that's part of why we do the assessments and look at the different aspects that his workers are in. That's our innovation. So we're here to work with you, and that's where a lot of our based on the innovation, that's where a lot of our product development comes from, is a question just like this of bringing situations and issues and challenges out, and we want to help you fix those. So thank you.
Thanks, Bubba. Yeah, actually, and Doreen has a great question along the same lines. Doreen says, we have workers who clean tanks using chemical suits and would like to have a good system to deal with heat-related illnesses. And she follows up a little bit with, what is best to use to deal with heat for workers in confined space using chemical suits? So I'm thinking it's, they're locked up, zippered up in those suits, in those spaces. What do you recommend for that, you guys?
Yeah, lean a little bit on OSHA with that too, figuring that out. But we want to develop a protocol, if you will, to where we need to measure the temperature in the room, and then on the body what the people are actually experiencing from a body temperature, and at the point that it's escalating to a dangerous level, we need to get them out of there. And so that's the protocol. Is it 10 minutes? Is it 15 minutes? Is it whatever it is? There's a danger zone, right? There's a baseline, and we want to establish that. We'll be an average, and then they go in for let's just say 20 minutes. Then we bring them out in a cool area. We hydrate them, and we monitor their body temperature. So when they're closer to 98.6, which is normal, and they're feeling back to normal, then we put the suit back on them and send them back in. So that's something we would have to figure out to establish that baseline and how long they're going to be in the hazard.
Thanks, Bubba. All right, Will has a question. How much is too much electrolytes for a person? Great question.
That is a great question, and I can't answer that question. What the best way I can answer it is to say, do not just drink an electrolyte solution. And it goes back to the 2-to-1. We feel like if you're ingesting 2 servings of water to 1 serving of electrolyte, then you're not getting too much sugar, too much salt, the things that are in the product. You're pretty much going to stay pretty balanced. Can you get too much water? Absolutely. You can. So if we look at, the 12 cups for a man, the 9 cups for a woman, and then when the hazard's present, OSHA tells you how much to drink every 20 minutes. Kind of use those parameters to gauge how much we need.
Cool. Thanks, Bubba.
But our products are lower sodium than others, and we do have sugar-free products as well. So, those are 2 things that can get the body, in trouble, if you will, in some cases. So that is a definite difference when you compare some of our products to some of the other sports drinks.
Appreciate that. Anthony has a question. It says, how do you review best practice program controls for certain conditions?
Don't know if I really understand the question.
Yeah, Anthony, if you could elaborate, and we'll move on to the next one. Bubba, I think it has to do with, how do you understand what an organization is doing, reviewing their best practices, and I think you covered it a little bit. You guys offer a facility assessment similar, like you said, to the glove assessment, to go in and look at where the water is and all that stuff. So maybe just talk a little bit about what is a facility assessment and why.
Yeah, so the first thing is we want to meet with the head of safety, the safety team, the EH&S nurse, whoever it is that is responsible for the safety of the workforce. That's who we want to talk to. And then we're going to ask questions that will spur the conversation of what challenges they're having, what their goals are, how many heat-related accidents did you have last year? Those kind of things. That, do we have a lot of diabetics and hypertensive workers without, no personal information, but on average, are you close to the average? The age of the worker, the average 40-year-old industrial worker, is that pretty close here? Yes. Okay. Then we know that, 11.3% were diabetic, 33% were hypertensive. So automatically, before we make a decision on providing an electrolyte product, we know that those 2 populations are sensitive to sugar and salt, which are the primary ingredients in a sports drink. So again, we can go back to the 3 formulas and then recommend what's not going to complicate conditions that they already have. And I think that's the biggest thing we do. It's not just a one size fits all. We look at, what the situation the worker is in. Is it a heavy workload? Is it a light workload? So that can determine how much sugar we need. Maybe we can go 100% sugar free. There's a lot of companies out there that I work with that have, sugar free mandates. They don't want sugar in the plant, period, because of the issues that it causes. So hopefully I answered the question.
Again, Anthony, let us know if you can, if Bubba answered your question. All right, next question is from Jennifer. She asked during the registration process, who is the biggest target customer? And you kind of talked a little bit about this, but talk a little bit about the demographics, Bubba, and who is Squincher most suited for?
For Squincher, we made a decision a long time ago to focus on the industrial and construction markets. We are not focused on the sports markets from a retail standpoint. Most of our products are sold through safety distribution, not Walmart or your local grocery store or the big box stores, any of that. So we really consider ourselves, a producer of PPE hydration safety products. So safety, worker safety is our focus. And we feel like we're the leader in hydration worker safety.
Thanks, Bubba. Let's see here. Steve asks, do you have systems for outdoor environments, such as for farms, ranches, etc.? Thanks, Steve.
Absolutely. Again, we'll talk about, we'll do the assessment, look at the challenges. We on a farm, for example, we're going to have folks that are in the field. Are they in an air-conditioned tractor or are they not? We're going to have folks that are doing maintenance on the equipment in a shop. So we're going to look at how do we provide the water? How do we provide the electrolyte products to where it's easily accessible for them to access it and stay hydrated? So, a little more challenging on a farm. I actually grew up on a farm, so I know a little bit about that. And so we will be happy to work with you and come up with a plan that will protect everybody, no matter where they are on the farm or facility.
Thanks, Bubba. I see we are 1 minute away from the top of the hour, and there's been a few questions come in. I try and not have it be an infomercial, but a number of people are asking about the posters. How do you get a poster? Where do I go to get a poster? And so there you go, Bubba. Where can people get this collateral?
Yeah, we'll make it easy. You just email me. It's Bubba, DUBBA .Wolford, WOLFORD at Kent, WW, that's KENTWW, 2 W's, not 3, .com. Bubba.Wolford at KentWW.com. If you'll include your mailing address, contact information, in case I need to get a hold of you for whatever reason, and we will get these shipped out to you immediately. And also, if you need to reach me by phone, I'll give you my cell phone number for anything you need. You can reach me at area code 662-574-6129. Again, that's area code 662-574-6129.
Cool. Thanks, Bubba. The looks like we're at the top of the hour, so Bubba, any final parting words?
Thank you for hosting this and all that you do for us. And we'll thank all the individuals. We had a lot of people on today. I hope you give us some feedback, and I hope this was time well spent for everybody on the call. And going forward, would love to be able to help you in any need that you have. So with that, thanks for everybody's time, and we look forward to doing this again.
Yeah, I second Bubba. Thanks to everybody that took part today, the audience. Without you guys, none of this, really would even happen. So really appreciate it. We know you have a choice of where to spend your time. We're very grateful that you spent it with us. Bubba, Mike, I know how hard you guys work behind the scenes on all this stuff. So really appreciate you taking the time and making the time to do this and put together this educational stuff and you're really helping really change the world. And we're just grateful to be a small part of it. So with that, everybody, again, we will be sending out a recording to the webinar along with the slides. So with that, we will bid everyone a great weekend and stay safe out there. Take care.
Thank you.